Now that we have everything created and assembled, it's time to start making drawings so other people can replicate our work. So click on drawing, and for some reason this always comes in as C size, and no one has C size paper. They have 8.5 by 11 size pieces of paper. So if you right click sheet, edit sheet, 8.5 by 11 is actually A. So change it to A size, 8.5 by 11. Click OK. This is way too big, so we're going to change our ANSI large, delete it, and instead use for title blocks ANSI A. If you double click it, it'll pop in place. Now we're going to go up to base, and the base is going to be what view are we going to see in here. I'm going to go to our little folder, search for the top, click open, and if I just clicked right now, it would put it in place, but I don't want that. So let me switch this to my top view so I can see what this looks like. And this is really big, so let's move this over and we can change the scale here. We'll make it half scale instead. And I don't really like that it's upside down like that. So I think what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to go and open up my top view. And what do I actually want to see when I look at this? That seems the most appropriate, even though that's backwards from Mrs. Thorne. Let's save that. And when I go back into my drawing here, I have the option as my base to put in my current view and still change the scale down to a half inch or half size. Okay, so there's that. There's the thickness. There's an isometric view so we can see what it should look like. We're going to make this one colored, so I'm going to add shading to it. And now we get to dimension this. When you go to dimension, it's under annotate. Annotations are any kind of notes you add to this to make it easier to read. We're going to add in center marks. Anytime you have something that looks like a circle or part of a circle like an arc, you want to put in a center mark. And we're also going to add regular dimensions. So here is our radius, 1.76, 0.38. This is actually the same radius as this one, so we're going to do something special in a second. Ooh. Oh, you see how I clicked that little green dot? Don't click the dots. Instead, click the lines. When you click a dot, it's actually saying from this point to this point. I want to know that distance. We don't want that. Click the when there is no dot. Okay, these dimensions all look kind of funny. 0.38, 0.06, 1.76. This is not what we made originally. So right click and go down to, actually right click on one of these dimensions and go to Edit Dimension Style. When this box pops up, we have the option to change the precision. We can change it to 3 after the decimal, 3 places after instead of 2 places after, and this will make things make a lot more sense. So we never did set this radius, we just had a tangent constraint, but this 0.063 is actually 0.0625, so maybe we should go out one more. This is not saying that in woodworking you're going out to the thousandths and 10,000ths of an inch. It's actually saying that this is a fraction. Okay, so 0.0625, that looks good. 0.375, that looks good. We need to know how thick this thing is, so dimension just that piece there. You can just click on the line as long as you don't get one of the little green dots. Again, that's so you can measure from this point to something else. You might want to know how far it is from this edge to this center mark, which is why we put the center mark in. So it's 5.625. Same thing from this edge to this center mark. And you want to kind of stair step them in. So your biggest ones are on the outside and they get smaller as they go in. Now, this is a symmetrical piece. So we're going to say, if we hit escape a couple times or right click and say OK, we can double click on one of these, like this one, and type a TYP, stands for typical. Could also put times 2, but I think typical is more appropriate in this situation. I'll move these over a little bit. You want to try and keep these numbers out from inside here. This is bad practice. Put them on the outside of your shape. Okay, this is everything we need for the top. So we're going to go up to Views, New Sheet, and everything we just had went away. It's actually right here. I'm going to rename Sheet 1 Top. I'm going to rename Sheet 2 Middle. The base for middle should be the middle. This is probably going to give us the same kind of issues as before. Should we care about that? Maybe not. If you wish to rotate this around, now you know how. In the interest of saving time on the video, I'm not going to do that. We want to show where our center marks are. I'm going to click on both sides on this so I can get center marks all the way around. And this is a hole. We have to do something special whenever we dimension holes. Instead of just dimension, you have one here labeled hole and thread. Click on that, click on the hole we made, and check that out. It has a depth of 0.625 here for you, and 0.375 is the diameter. This symbol means that from this edge to this edge, see the little circle, edge to edge, it's 0.375. Okay, these should look about the same as the ones we had before. This is 0.4 something, or 4 point something. Dimension from here to here is 5.625. We do have a thickness we didn't have before. So I'm assuming this is my datum, and I'm measuring off of that 0.375. We want to show the thickness here is 1.5. And we also need to show what this little radius is here. I missed it. I clicked a green dot. Don't do that. There we go. 0.25 radius. This is the only one that's repeated. So I'll double click it and say, how about times 2 this time? It means that you have one here and one here. 2 different places on the drawing is what times 2 would mean in this case. You're not multiplying this dimension by 2 ever. This, I'm going to put a TYP after. So that means that the same thickness from here to here is all over the entire drawing. And it is. So that works. Let me actually go back to the top one real quick. Did we mix something up? Yeah, there's not a hole on this side. So this TYP should not be there, should it? That's only if it's a typical dimension. And the only typical thing is how far these are spaced apart. Back to middle. We can also dimension the outside of this, which we did not have yet. And it's the same as the other ones. Ideally, this is a perfect shape. Double click on this thing on the top right. Change this to a shaded drawing. And let's go on back to Place Views, New Sheet. And we're going to add in our last one. So Base, Search. Oh, not the last one. We still have a dowel rod to do. We started with the top, so I guess we're going down to the bottom now. Oh man, that got really close to that line, didn't it? To move this, you can't just grab and move it. It only moves left and right. You have to move the first one you put in which case it's this one here. I can drag that up, I can drag this over. These two drawings are always aligned with each other, so that's kind of nice. Double click this, make it shaded. Annotate. This is an arc, so it gets a center mark. My dimension to one of these. Try not to have your dimensions go off the page. Actually, don't have your dimensions go off the page. Mark that again. And if we want, we can click on the left and the right, and that'll still do the same thing as clicking the line in the middle. This little hidden line here is just showing if we turn this on its side, that's where that cuts in. This would line up with that and over here somewhere. We can have this be ×2, but it pushes it off the side, so I can hit enter and keep it underneath, and everything looks prettier. I can grab that little knuckle there and drag it over, and this can be a ×2 as well. Okay, we have the top, the middle. This is actually going to be called the bottom. Go back to place views, new sheet, last one, kind of. Here's the dowel. That's huge. Let's have this be a 2:1 scale. So it's still big, but not that big. Double click this one, make it shaded, dimension. There's our diameter, there's our length. We're going to make a center mark here, click OK. We are still going to put in an assembly view and a parts list, bill of materials, but I don't have time in this video for that, so we're going to stop here. In the next video, I'll show you how to do some other stuff.